Today, so I thought I'd just try a lot of different angles. So that's the reason I'm filming from a different angle today. But hopefully I'll eventually figure an angle out that works for me. Yesterday I filmed a video and I was so excited about it that all day I've just been thinking, oh, I want to make another one. So here I am, even though this will probably just go up in like a couple of days, I presume, because I think I'll be really busy next like 1.5 week. So it might be handy to just have something as a backup, because my summer vacation will just be crazy and I'm just finishing off school now. So oh, it's a mess. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about something called The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I'm not just a review, but in particular transformation, the notion of transformation in this work. By the way, before I continue, I have 2 things to say. First of that is that I just yesterday heard that finally my books have arrived, but I let them like be delivered at my parents' house because I'm often not here. And I ordered at Book Depository, so you can never actually know when they will arrive. And in a flat you can sometimes just get in a bit of a mess when you are not at home. But I usually only order like books once a year or something, at least in a big bunch. I mean, twice a year I have to get my books for school, and sometimes I think, well, I have free delivery anyway, I can order an extra one. But I haven't ordered at Book Depository in I think 3 years or something. That will probably come soon, because I'm very, very excited about those books and I really want to show them and talk about them and tell you why I'm so incredibly looking forward to reading all of them. But for now I thought I'd do something a bit more contentful, if you will. So I really wanted to talk about this book. Oh, by the way, oh, this won't stop, will it? Anyway, before I start, I'm going to give some sort of analysis, but I don't have a lot of experience with analyzing works of fiction, so I'm not completely certain how far I can go with free interpretation and stuff. So maybe my interpretation can be labeled as wrong, maybe it can't. I mean, it's quite blurry. I think if you'd say, well, Jekyll and Hyde they're both undercover dolphins, maybe in some sort of dolphin society, that would be a logical explanation. But that would be wrong, I think. But I don't know, with less extreme, less outrageous things, how it compares to the whole wrong interpretation, right interpretation thing. So one way to find out, I'm just going to get into it. First, I'll just give a short overview of this book, by the way, because it's an English library edition and it contains some other things which I want to briefly mention. Then I'll just go into the story and then into the transformation. So this, as I said, is the Penguin English Library edition of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The atmosphere in that story is incredible. It's like this very, very good gothic sphere, and it's just really nice to read, actually. I found the language quite challenging, if I'm honest, but I still enjoyed it a lot. It's very cleverly constructed. The characters are all very interesting. I'd just recommend this. I rate this 4 stars, but actually maybe it would have been a 5-star rating, I'm not sure. But if you like the picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, I definitely recommend this. Particularly this edition, because there's also another story called The Bottle Imp, which is also quite dark, not necessarily the same, as it has a tropical setting, so that's already changed the atmosphere from like a gloomy London evening to like Hawaii. So that's changed the atmosphere, but it's still really dark. I feel feel this is still Gothic literature. I thought it really interesting to read something that was like in that whole Gothic genre, if you will, but very tropical as well. It worked, it really did. It's some sort of fairy tale. I would just say go into it blind. It's amazing, because, well, I did so, and it was just, I actually wish I could have gone blind into Jekyll and Hyde, because, yeah, holy shit, but I couldn't because of popular culture. So I just also recommend the other story, and then in the back there's an essay entitled "What Does Edward Hyde Look Like" by John Sutherland, and it was a very clever essay, very insightful. It looked at the descriptions that were given of Hyde throughout the book, and how that compared to his appearance as shown in film remakes of the work. So particularly if you're a fan of films, I would very much recommend the essay. It's not very long, it's very easy to get through, and it's, as I said, very insightful, very interesting. So this edition I'd really recommend it if you're planning on reading the book. But let's get into what I wanted to talk about, because I've been talking for way too long. The novel starts off with Addison, a lawyer, who is walking with his friend Anfield through a dark London street, and they come across a door. And Anfield suddenly is like, oh, I saw a really weird man here. It turned out to be Hyde. And basically he saw Hyde just walking, and there was a small girl of like 9 years old or something coming from the other direction, and they crossed each other, and Hyde just trampled her. And it was all quite devastating, as I can imagine. I mean, what? Why? How? Particularly how? I'm just really interested to see how something like that would work. It would be really disturbing in particular, I think. So his reaction was totally on point, I must admit that. From that, the story continues, and it's just like talking about, oh, who is this Hyde? And what is it with him? What's notable is that every time he's mentioned, it's like, oh, yeah, he looks really strange. He looks like he has some kind of deformity, but I can't pinpoint what it is. And that just made me think of a video Jan Campbell published on her channel, which I'll link down below, where she talked about the portrayal of deformity in literature and film. And she said that if you have an evil character, the writer often does the thing where he says, oh, yeah, he's evil from the inside, the outside must mirror that. So then, because of that, these characters often, evil characters often have deformities. And well, she obviously was not amused. And I found that, actually knowing that and being conscious of that, I found that quite awful. Eventually you find out, and I'll have to give the major plot point / spoiler if you've lived under 20 rocks, because one less and you would have heard it. So if you literally do not know this book, just pick it up right now, because one day longer and you will know what it is about. But I'll just assume everyone knows the general plot. If you haven't read it and you don't know the ending, I won't go into that without warning you first. So don't worry about that, because you really must experience the ending for yourself. It's so good. Eventually, they feel like, oh, Hyde is really... oh, there's something with him. He seems so evil, and what is it with him? And what are his connections to Jekyll? Because there seems to be some things. And eventually, in the last chapter, you find out that Jekyll has an internal moral conflict between good and evil, basically. He wanted to be good. He wanted to conform to the societal norms, but on the same side, he had these bad urges. And he didn't want that. He was really upset by that imbalance, the inharmoniousness of his being. So he just, he did an experiment to separate them, to separate his good from his evil, because apparently that's possible with chemistry. Whatever he says. What's important is that Hyde is the pure evil part of Jekyll. However, Jekyll is not the pure good of the initial Jekyll. So Jekyll is still that imbalanced person with both the need to conform to society and those bad urges, while Hyde is his pure evil, in which he can change, and he sometimes does because he's now free of morality, and it's just he just likes not feeling so imbalanced, and that's why he sometimes changes in him, but eventually he thinks like, nah, I shouldn't do that because it's bad. The reason he changes into Hyde is, he says himself, because he does this experiment, and while he drinks this potion for the first time, he's in a really bad mindset. So he does it not out of pure good, and just to be good and to help people or something. But he does it because he wants to be better and wants to accomplish things doing that. So he says that's why he thinks he changes into Hyde. However, Jekyll, who wants to conform to those societal norms, and that's the good. The good and evil are relative to all those norms. Of course, there's no objective good and objective evil, or maybe there is, but this interpretation of this book doesn't matter really. But anyway, so there's no objective, if there isn't any objective good, but it's all comparative to society, which is the fact. So the good and evil, as how they are talked about in this book, are relative to societal norms, and because of that, the evil can also be considered as just like primitive human urges, which we have to suppress because of those societal norms, because we want to conform. This actually makes it very logical, and now there comes a spoiler for the ending. So whenever I put my hands down, the spoiler is over and you can just watch freely without worrying. So, as you maybe have read, if you are watching this part, you hopefully have, you know that near the ending you find out that Hyde, after he kills the man, he has more difficulty changing into Jekyll, and he changes involuntarily. He needs more and more potion, and eventually he is out of potion and can't change back. And because of that, you can actually say that Hyde, just once unleashed, will always rule over the societal norms, if you will. So that was that. No spoilers anymore. Just the fact that he changes into Hyde instead of into some pure goods, and the thing I just said in the spoilers, will both lead to the same point, which is actually that because of those primitive urges, that is the reason why Jekyll changes into Hyde, and why he's because those primitive urges come from within and just will always be very dominant. The point which I wanted to make then is that this transformation from Hyde to Jekyll, and from Jekyll to Hyde, is actually Jekyll. Jekyll has to conform to societal norms and therefore lacks the negative freedom. Because negative freedom, I'll just explain briefly. Positive freedom is freedom, for example, if you have an addiction, you lack positive freedom in that aspect, because you yourself are preventing you from doing what you really otherwise could do. Negative freedom is being prevented from outer forces, basically. So Jekyll is prevented from society. He lacks negative freedom, while Hyde actually lacks positive freedom in the fact that he's controlled by these urges. However, Jekyll does also lack positive freedom in that sense, because he's both the good and the evil. So, for one, he is always urged by these negative things, by his inherent so-called evil, and that prevents him from being positively free, while society prevents him from being negatively free. And both of that come together and make Jekyll significantly less free than Hyde. So actually you could just see the transformation from Jekyll to Hyde. At least that's my opinion. I'm really not sure whether this is good or bad or whatever. But in my opinion, the transformation from Jekyll to Hyde actually is a transformation towards more freedom, and that is why Jekyll initially wants to change into Hyde, even though he thinks, well, he's the evil, you know. It's not just, in my opinion, the lack of morality with which he can just like feel comfortable. It's above that the increase of freedom he gains. So the transformation just gains Jekyll more freedom. And that's basically the point I wanted to make. I hope it makes any sense. If not, just tell me and I'll just, I don't know, think about it more, because I find it really interesting. But for now, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.